I'm here today with Georgia Joyner, who I have known since, I think we've been working together for...
Since high school.
Yeah, no, not since high school, but we've been
About
together...
5 years.
Well, I think more than that, actually. I think we've been together since 2015, so about 9 years now we have been working together, and I refer to Georgia as my phone-a-friend. So whenever I get a question that I can't answer, guess who I call? I call GK Joyner. So here we are with Georgia Joyner today. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got into this type of work, and when we'll go from there.
Okay. I've been in this business. I started in 1972 with the Social Security Administration, and I became a claims representative, who are the people that are trained to know everything about Social Security and take claims, whatever we need to do. And I did this for 13 years. And then I started a family, and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. So I retired. 6 months later, my child was born in March. In October, I started GK Joyner, WK White and Associates. I was with the regional commissioner for the whole southeastern part of the United States, who enacted Social Security with the President of the United States, I believe in 1938. And I said, you need an office in Ocala. And he said, well, start one. So that's how I started out with this business in 82. And I'm still doing this type of work, and I'm 52 years worth.
So, yeah, you've been up here in, I guess this is Lake or Marion County, this area?
This is Sumter.
Sumter County, so you've handled cases all over the state, I understand,
Oh, yeah.
but mostly in this area, is that right? What towns do you usually get cases?
I cover from the tip of Florida north to Miami.
Excellent.
Both sides.
Excellent.
Either, whatever area, some even into Georgia, depending on where their cases are. Because it used to be, and it probably still is, if you're outside of Florida, let's say Georgia or Alabama, if the state agency that's developing your cases is in an area when you go to a hearing, then you can go to a hearing.
Right.
You don't have to travel. So wherever the client lives is where the hearing's going to be held.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about, we were talking earlier about your experiences while working at Social Security, how maybe sometimes the claims representatives there didn't dig deep enough to get the right answers from clients, and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I initially interview someone, I go into detail their resources and income, because that's going to determine their eligibility for supplemental security income. Also, their work history, to see if they've worked long enough under Social Security to be entitled to disability benefits based on their work history.
Excellent. So I'm going to throw some questions at you here, rapid fire. So tell me, what is the difference between SSI and SSDI?
Okay. SSI is based on your income and resources. You can be anywhere from birth till death and be eligible for disability under SSI, but you have to meet the income and resource requirements, which is what income do you have coming into you, what resources do you have, and if they're over a certain amount, income and or resources, you could be deemed ineligible. Even though you were totally disabled and unable to work, they would deny you on the income and resource limit. The Social Security part is based on quarters of coverage. You have to have so many quarters of coverage out of the last 10 years. So you have to have 5 years out of the last 10 in order to be insured for disability. You have to meet 20 quarters out of 40. Also, for the Social Security part, my train of thought
So
went bye-bye.
Yeah, so I'll jump in a little bit and say a little bit about SSI to start with. So SSI, as I understand it, is for someone that either has never worked or hasn't worked long enough to get enough credits to get disability insurance benefits. And that could be someone that's younger, that hasn't been in the workforce for a long time. Could be a child who's obviously never worked, or it could just be someone like that maybe they were supported by a spouse and they never really had to work, and they find themselves in a situation where maybe they are separated or divorced and they are unable to work because of a disability. So SSI is there kind of to help them. So tell me what are resources? When you say resources, what do you mean by resources?
Okay, let's say we have a child that's birthed to age 18. They're considered a child and they're under the parent's income, which is their work. If a parent has acreage that is worth more than $2,000, or if they have income, it could knock them out of disability. So the parent's income determines the eligibility for a child under the age of 18.
Okay.
For an adult, it's determined 18 over, and then they have to have their own income or resources. So if their income, let's say they have money from someone coming in on a monthly basis for some reason, like someone died and left them an estate, and let's say they have $1,000 a month coming in, that would make them ineligible to receive SSI because they are exceeding the income requirements. Resources. A person could have property. Let's say they had a house that they were living in and they were renting, but they had a piece of property somewhere that wasn't, they weren't on it, they didn't live on it. And if that piece of property was worth over the allowable amount, then that would make them ineligible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the limits, say, for a married couple? How much resources can they have? Or what is the limit on
I believe it's $2,500.
So yeah, it's $3,000 now.
Is it $3,000
$3,000 as a married couple, and then as a single person, it's $2,000.
Oh, okay. They've increased that.
They've increased it. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we mean by that is, if, for example, you have a savings account and you have $10,000 in your savings account, you're not going to be eligible for SSI until that account goes below $3,000 if you're a married couple, or $2,000 if you're single. So other things that Social Security counts, they don't count your house, right? You're living in a house, they don't hold that against you. But if you own a second property, like say maybe you own some land in Texas that's worth $80,000, that could be an issue that prevent you from getting the SSI. Also, if you have more than one car and the value of that car exceeds those resource limits, then you're not able to get the SSI. Now, with SSDI, does it matter whether or not I have those resources?
No. You could have $1 million in the bank. It's based on your medical disability, and income doesn't count unless you're performing services for that income.
Right. So, how does Social Security determine how much money I receive if I'm found disabled for disability insurance benefits only?
Okay, it depends on how much you've paid into Social Security over the highest years that they use in making that determination. So a person could receive anywhere from $500 to $3,500 a month. So it depends on their income during that period of time that Social Security uses to make that numerical figure.
Right. So that monthly benefit that they're going to get is based on what, like you said, their best 10 years or their best period of earnings. Sometimes I see cases where a person gets both SSI and SSDI. how is it that I could get SSI and SSDI together?
Okay. Let's say that your Social Security amount is $500, and the SSI amount you could get from $500 up to $974 plus another $20, which is because you're drawing Social Security. You're eligible for another $20 on top of that. So you could receive the $500 from Social Security and the rest in SSI money. Now, if you have income coming in from another source, let's say $100 from somebody or from a pension or whatever, then that $100 is deducted from the SSI amount that you're receiving.
Right.
So what other income you have could deplete that. Now, if you have like VA benefits, if it's a pension and you're receiving $500 a month, Social Security doesn't count that pension against your SSI because VA has already used that money to determine that you're going to get that $500.
Right.
So it's not affected.
So let's say that my monthly SSDI payment is, say, $2,000 a month. Under what circumstances would it be important for me to still get the SSI portion processed through Social Security if I filed a concurrent claim?
I'm not sure I understood that question.
So let's say I'm getting $2,000 a month. I'm eligible for $2,000 a month
under Social
Security disability, but I filed both SSI and Social Security disability. Should I just call Social Security and tell them I want to waive my SSI, or is there any reason why I would not want to do that?
Okay, you would not want to do that. If, let's say your claim was approved, and they said you became disabled a year ago, but you've been disabled since you filed your claim, then you would want to keep your SSI going because there's a 5-month waiting period before the Social Security kicks in. So that would entitle you to that money all the way up until the point that your claim's approved. And during that period, if you had no medical and you had outstanding medical bills, then Medicaid would take over that. And that could be thousands of dollars.
Right.
Because you're not going to be eligible for Medicare until you've been on disability for 2 years. From the date that the judge says you became disabled, there's a 5-month waiting period. And after the 5 month, your checks start. And you have to receive 24 months of checks before your Medicare kicks in.
And that's a question I get a lot from clients is, when does my Medicare start? So it's not technically 24 months from the date that you were found disabled. You have to have that 5-month waiting period. So it's really going to be 29 months. So if you're receiving Medicaid while you've been waiting for your application to get approved, you don't want to waive your SSI.
No.
You're going to want to keep that because Medicaid will pay, like you said, the medical, and there's also that 5-month waiting period that SSI would pay, assuming that your application was filed on or around the time the date you were found disabled. So this is a good general question. Mm-hmm. I got hurt at work, and now I can't work. I thought I could go back to work, so I didn't apply for Social Security, and I've waited 2 years. Can you still help me?
Yes. And have you returned to work?
I have not returned to work.
Okay.
I just thought I was going to get better, but my condition got worse. But I have some friends that are telling me, "Oh, it's too late. You can't file."
That's not true. You can file for disability, and let's say you became disabled 2 years ago. You're still going to say, that's when I became disabled. So Security can only go back retroactive 1 year from the date that you file your claim. So you would at least have 1 year of benefits if the judge or Social Security deemed that you were disabled during that period, or maybe they chose another date when your medical got worse. Then from that point forward, They would do a 5-month waiting period, start your benefits, and you could receive thousands of dollars in back pay.
So with SSDI, that's the part where you get paid based on your earnings. How far back can Social Security go? What's the furthest they can go back on your claim?
They can only go back 1 year from the date that you filed your claim.
Correct. So
For money benefit, but they can tell you that you were disabled back 5 years ago.
Right.
And, but you would still get the back pay for only 1 year, 12 months.
Now, SSI is different. How does SSI get paid? Do they go back to 12 months?
SSI is effective with the month and day with the month that you file your claim forward. If you didn't file for the SSI until later because your income and resource changed, let's say you had $5,000 when you filed your claim, they wouldn't take an SSI claim because that money that you had in savings was over the allowable amount. That money is exhausted, and now you have under the $2,000 or the $3,000 as a couple. Then you could file your claim, and the SSI would only be effective from the date and year that you filed forward. But you could still be eligible for the money prior to that under disability, and then pick up the money from SSI forward.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So, how do I apply for SSI? Can you do that for me?
Sure.
And how do we do that?
I talk with you over the phone, or you come into my office in person, and we do the application. And in addition to that, we'll also file for the Social Security to see if you've worked long enough. And sometimes people haven't worked long enough, or their income is kind of scattered over the years just because they were maybe a housewife or didn't work, and so we take both claims. It's deemed by Social Security to take both the Social Security and the SSI claim. And then if you're not eligible based on your work history, then it's an SSI claim only.
Okay, got you. Can I file for your SSDI online? Can I go online and do that for you if you give me the information?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. This is a big question. I get this probably every day. Can I work and still get SSDI?
Yes.
So tell me about that. What are the rules for that?
Okay. Let's say you're making I need a calculator. Let's say you're making $200 a week working. That's okay. Let's say you're making $200 a week. That's $2,600 a month. Now, because you're working, they deem this income to where they subtract $60, and you may not be eligible based on this figure. I'm just giving you an example. They'd say $60 from $2,600 divided by 2, and then that's the amount. And let's say there's $300 that they're going to count against your SSI eligibility, and that amount is $974. So they're going to subtract the $300 from the $974 and pay you the difference.
Right.
Income from your spouse can also affect your SSI, and they do deeming on that as well. And it's basically done the same way, only it's a higher amount. It's $1,026, something like that, from the deemed amount of $300.
Okay.
And if you've got children, they get an exclusion also. So for every child, you get $250 subtracted from that. So your spouse or you or your spouse, basically, let's talk with that. If their amount of money is $2,600 and you've got 3 children, $250 is a lot of money, and her income may not count at all.
Right. So it depends on how many children you have.
Right.
So Social Security has definition of what's called significant gainful activity, SGA we call it. SGA is the amount of money that if you make over a certain limit, you would not be eligible for disability insurance benefits. Currently for 2024, that amount is $1,550. So if you're out there working and you make more than $1,550 a month, potentially you wouldn't be eligible for the SSDI. Now there are some, like everything, there's some exceptions to all of that. Some of the exceptions that Social Security looks at is the type of work you're doing. Sometimes people do work that we call sheltered employment, where say maybe they were working for a family member and they're really not doing anything. For example, I had a case recently where a young lady was working for her grandfather who owned a nursery, and they had her working as a receptionist. And was she working? No, she was actually sitting around. She was sleeping half the day. She was not really working, but she was still collecting a paycheck. So Social Security doesn't count that as what's called SGA. That's not. So those are situations. So the answer to the question, people say, should I work? I always tell clients to go to work if you can, even if it's just part-time. And there's a couple of reasons for that, because one is it shows that you're trying. The second thing is, let's say you try and you can't even work part-time. Down the road, I think that'll help your case, especially if we go in front of a judge and the judge sees that you're actually trying to go back to work and earn an income. So that comes up occasionally.
What I tell my clients in reference to, they say, hey, I want to try to work. And they're going to be making probably over SGA. I tell them, try it and see how long you can do it.
Right. And
sometimes they're only able to work a month, maybe 2 months.
Right.
So if they worked 1 or 2 months, then and they're able to do it successfully, it sometimes will affect their case. But I'm thinking of all the different things that could happen.
There's all kinds of different rules.
There's all kinds of scenarios.
So,
you can work, we can write it off as an unsuccessful work attempt.
Right.
If it's over a year and you worked after that year, we can write it off. The judge can go to the hearing and say, well, it wasn't, we can write that off as an unsuccessful work attempt, or it wasn't SGA, it wasn't enough money.
Right.
So you kind of have to wait around to see how that work is going to affect the scenario.
Right, and I've had cases where a client, say, hasn't worked for, say, 3 years, and so they go out and test their employability, and they find something that they can do. Maybe their condition has improved a little bit. So what happens in that situation is Social Security, especially with an administrative law judge, they will pay them what's called a closed period of disability, where they'll say, well, we'll find you disabled as of this date, but the day you went back to work, your disability ended, so we're going to pay you for that 3 years. And that's called a closed period of disability, and that happens sometimes
quite frequently
with cases. So.
And some people can file for disability, and in the course of filing, they pass away.
Right.
We found like a wife or a child or a mother or anyone can be their representative for that period and can receive that money.
Right.
For the back pay.
Right. Sadly, Social Security reports that over 25,000 people die every year while they're waiting to get their Social Security disability approved. And that's, I used to think that's terrible. How could that be true? So far this year, and here we are in April, I've had 3 of my clients pass away while in the system waiting to get approved. And so what we do, like you said, is we get another party to be what we call a substituted party. And they then become the person that would be eligible for those benefits. If it's SSDI. If it's SSI, we're kind of out of luck. And I've had that happen before,
right.
Only to find out that I couldn't get those benefits for, say, their child or other people. But if it's an SSDI case, sadly, it's hard. It's sad to say this, but those are easy cases because the person's passed away, maybe from the condition that we have applied for, and so we get this a lot. I shouldn't say a lot, but we get it, and it's I think an editorial on our system being so slow and taking so long. And that brings me up to one of the questions I was going to ask you today. What's a Terry case? What does that mean?
Those are cases where they've been determined terminal and they're going to die. And if they die within the waiting period, unfortunately, there's no benefit if it's just a Social Security case. So if they die within that waiting period, there's no benefits to anyone. If there's children or a wife, they could potentially be eligible for ongoing benefits on behalf of the wage earner.
Right. So if I have a terminal illness that my doctor has sat down with me and said, it's not good, you're not going to live more than 6 months, can I call Social Security and ask them to put my case in the front of the line? Will they do that if I have the documentation?
Definitely.
Definitely.
We have a lot of cases like that. Sometimes it takes longer than the 6 months, and people say, well, why do I need to hire someone to represent me if I know I'm terminal? You just don't know you don't know all the avenues, the questions that are going to be asked. And even though you are determined to be terminal or expected to die, some cases you don't die within that period, and medical improvement has happened where the person didn't die.
Right.
Which is good. Which is excellent. But you need someone as your advocate to walk you through this. And it may mean that we may not get any money for representing you.
Right.
But you will at least have someone to walk you through it rather than to go through it yourself.
Right, because we can call Social Security or we can fax them a letter and say we have what was designated as a Terry case. And their rules and regulations say that they have to take that application, they have to put that to the front of the line and process it. Where if you call them, you don't know the terminology, you don't know what they should do on the other end. So that's how we can help you. So this brings me to a question. Let's say that I'm 50 years old and I have passed away and I have left 2 children under the age of 18. And let's say I've worked all my life, I've earned enough quarters. What benefits are there for my family?
Okay, your children would receive 50% if you are still living, and if you pass away, then they would be eligible to receive 3/4 of what your amount was. Plus, if you have minor children, your wife could also be included in that benefit. So if you have 2 or more children, you would probably exceed what we call the family maximum, and that amount of money would be spread out among all of the children. And when each child turns 16, they come off, and then that money reverts over to the next child or children.
Okay. So as an example, let's say my monthly Social Security benefit is $1,000 a month, and I have 2 kids, let's say they're twins, and they're both age 14. How much are they going to get?
$500.
$500 each?
$500
total. So it would be $250.
Be split among them. Now, if the mother's working, it may not be to her advantage income-wise to file for that money, so they would exclude her. But in the event that she becomes disabled later on, after she's between 50 and 60, she could file for benefits as a disabled widow or even a disabled mother.
Right. So that was going to be my next question. Let's say my spouse has passed away and I'm 55 years old. What and let's say I'm disabled. Can I get benefits based on my disabled spouse's earnings record?
Yes. Between the age of 50 and 60, a wife or a husband, widower, can file for disability. Anything past 60 would be regular straight widows. So you have to be disabled between the ages of 50 and 60 in order to file for disabled widows benefits.
Yeah, so automatically at age 60, whether you're disabled or not, you'd be eligible for widow benefits from Social Security.
Correct.
What is the amount? How do they determine the amount of widow benefits?
It's 3/4 of what the wage earner would have drawn.
So in our example earlier, if the wage earner was receiving $1,000 a month, they would get $750 a month?
Right.
Okay, very good. Does Social Security ever pay a family member to take care of a disabled child? Are there any benefits that they're eligible for? I'm sorry, that's kind of a trick question because there's yes and no.
There's yes and no there. And I think the rules and laws have changed over the last few years where they can potentially draw some money for someone that's not capable of taking care. I don't know the amount.
Yeah,
or how they compute it. I think it's.
I actually have an expert that does that.
Really?
So I have an attorney. His name is Matthew Carley, and he helps people that are in that very situation. And so if that is a situation that you're looking at, give us a call and we'll get Mr. Carley over to talk to you because that's his expertise.
Yeah.
He also, if you are in the hospital and you've had a devastating injury and you're having problems getting Medicaid started, or say you need to go to a nursing home or a skilled facility like a rehab center, and you're just having difficulty with either Medicaid or Medicare getting you over to those facilities, give me a call and we'll hook you up with Mr. Carley as well, because this is what he does. He knows all the rules and he knows how to get things done quickly. So if that comes up,
that hasn't really been in effect
too
long.
Well, there's a lot of nuances to that I wasn't even aware of, because sometimes we find ourselves, we're doing these Social Security cases, we're worried about getting the person approved for disability. Mm-hmm. We don't really get involved with Medicare, so to speak, other than to tell the person, hey, you're eligible for Medicare, and then they'll send you the information. And that leads me to another thing that I would like to mention is that if you're eligible for Medicare, there's lots of programs out there, like the Medicare Advantage program that they have. There's prescription programs that are out there. I'm not an expert on that. I'm not going to be able to advise you on that, but I have a phone-a-friend for that. So if and it's somebody other than GK Joyner, but if you have that situation, we're going to send you to somebody that we trust, that we know that does that, and they'll be able to help you get the proper Advantage plan that's going to be best for you. Because to be honest with you, there are a lot of predators out there trying to trick people and trying to get them into something that maybe isn't going to be ideal for them. So that's a good thing to reach out to us on as well. So I get this question all the time: can a non-citizen receive Social Security disability benefits?
Yes.
And tell me about that. How does that occur? Do they have to have a Social Security number?
Usually they do have they have to have a Social Security number. They have to be they could be a non-resident, they could be here for work, they could be here visiting or living with someone. So their status on their being in the United States has to meet Social Security guidelines in order for them to be eligible to receive.
So it's basically the same rules. Right. So I recently had a client that was here working. She was from Ireland, and sweet lady. She ended up getting in a really bad automobile accident. She'd been here for 30 years, and she had enough credits and we were able to get her disability benefits even though she was technically a citizen of Ireland. I also had a client just the other day who lived near the Canadian border, and he actually had worked in Canada for 20 years, and he actually had worked in the U.S. for 20 years. So he was able to pull from both systems. So that comes up on an occasional basis. So let's say I get hurt on the job and I'm receiving workers' compensation benefits, but I'm never going to be able to go back to work. Can I apply for Social Security disability?
Yes. Your workers' comp, though, can offset your benefits until, let's say, you get a settlement. And if you get a settlement and you're filing for disability and you get a settlement, you've got to make sure that your attorney states that the workers' comp is offset based on your life expectancy. Because if you're going to draw $800,000, or let's say lower than that, let's say $300,000 as a settlement, they're going to prorate that money into your future based on your age, and that could be like $4.50 a month for the rest of your life, or $4.50 for the rest of your life.
Right.
So, and that may not affect your Social Security at all.
Right.
But if you did not have that in the judge's decision for that offset, you may not draw any Social Security until that money is exhausted that you received. So I always tell my clients, if you're going for a settlement, remember, get this in writing from the judge when the settlement is there. Because once the settlement is done, you can't go back and do it.
Okay.
They're going to prorate your money based on how much that settlement was and how much Social Security. And they call it a workman's comp offset.
Okay.
And it could devastate you.
Right. So that's probably even more reason why you should hire a representative or an attorney to represent you in your Social Security claim if you have a workers' comp claim. If you have an attorney working on your workers' comp case, they're probably going to know about this stuff, but maybe not always. But it's also helpful to have somebody on your side to make sure that things get done properly, because like you said, it could have a big effect on the bottom line on what you receive. So now we're going to talk a little bit about attorney fees, representative fees, why you should hire a representative, what a representative can do for you, those types of things. So I'll start out by talking a little bit about how representatives and attorneys get paid on your Social Security case if you hire them. So with our law firm, if you hire us, you do not pay us an attorney fee unless you are awarded past due benefits. So the past due benefits are the benefits that are paid to you at a lump sum once you're found disabled. Our fee is the lesser of $7,200 or 25% of your past due benefits. So an example would be, let's say you're awarded $10,000 in past due benefits. Our fee would be $2,500. Let's say you were awarded $100,000. Our fee would not be $25,000. It would be $7,200. It would be at that cap. So now Social Security changes that cap from time to time. So our contract indicates that if Social Security increases that amount, then that amount at the time your case is approved would apply to your case. So it's important to understand that. It's also important to understand that there are certain situations where we are not paid a fee and we represent people for free, and that happens occasionally. Also, if you have a prior attorney or a prior representative and they have not waived their fee, then we will have to do what's called a fee petition at the end of your case, where basically we tell Social Security how much time we've spent on your case, we account for all that, and then Social Security determines how much our fee would be up to that cap. So that's important to understand. So, Georgia, do you think there's any difference in having an attorney versus not having an attorney or a representative on your case? Do you think it makes a difference?
Oh, definitely. It's like going to a doctor. Why do you see a specialist? Because that specialist knows, what he's supposed to be doing for you. Where that's why you're seeing a doctor, is because you have no clue what they're doing. Same way with us. I worked for Social Security, and I've been doing this for 52 years.
Right.
So, we know the rules, laws, and we know how they apply to your particular case. And not always, but sometimes Social Security will take a claim and they don't realize that if you became disabled prior to age 21, and now let's say you're 23, and you became disabled when you were 18, and they failed to take a claim for the disabled child benefit, then you've lost money, you've lost that claim. So I know, and our firm knows, all the rules, laws of Social Security and what it takes to make a case medically and technically.
Right, and a lot of times the people at Social Security, they might not be looking out for your best interest, not intentionally, but they're just doing their job. And sometimes they overlook things, like you said, that disabled adult child benefit that you could be entitled to, but nobody told you about.
Right.
So I had a client recently who had went in and asked for her $250 funeral expense after her husband passed away. This young lady, young, in her 50s, was at the time disabled and receiving Social Security disability benefits based on her earning record. They let her walk out of the Social Security office without telling her that she could potentially be entitled to disabled widow benefits based on her husband's earnings, which were significantly higher. So we were able to help this person 5 years after the fact by proving that they should have taken an application for widow benefits. And so we got her a nice lump sum of money going back to the date that she went in. So that happens.
To go further on that, the application form that we use when you initially call us is, we know everything about you that pertains to Social Security, SSI, disabled child's benefits, disabled widow or widower's benefits. My form, when I get through with it, I will know exactly what type of claim you should have filed if you've already filed, or if you need to file something else in addition to that. And it happens to where, these people, that take your claims, they don't know everything there is sometimes because they're new at the job and things can slip through.
Right.
So when I get through talking with you, I know exactly based on what you filed for, and do we need to file for something else.
Right. So let's say I get a denial notice from Social Security. How long do I have to ask them for a reconsideration or an appeal?
You have 60 days, and they give you 5-day mail time. So basically, you got 65 days from the date on your letter to file the next step.
So if you wait more than that 65 days, there's a chance that your case would just end, and if you wanted to wanted to continue your case, you'd have to file a new claim. Now, there are certain situations where we can show good cause for not filing that appeal on time. Situations come up where, for example, maybe your address changed, you notified Social Security, but they didn't change it in their system, so they sent the notice of denial to the wrong address, so you didn't even know about it. So we could show that you didn't know about it, and they would have to reopen your claim. There are situations where a person has mental impairments, and they don't completely understand their rights, and so that would be a reason to show good cause for filing late on your appeal also. There's a whole bunch of things. So if you have a denial notice and it's more than 65 days and you're thinking you have to file a new claim, give us a call first, because there are some things that we can do on some cases, not every case, to get that application reinstated. The reason that's important is because if you have to file a new claim, remember your benefits are retroactive for SSDI 12 months from the date of your application. So you'll have lost a bunch of months. If it's an SSI claim, again, you're starting over. You can only get paid from the date of your application forward. So those are some things that come up a lot of times on our cases. And again, it's one of those things that you just don't know because you don't know.
And that's why you hire us, because we do know. We know everything there is to know and how to protect your rights.
If you're filing for Social Security disability, or if you've recently received a denial and need help appealing your case, please call us at Hogan Smith. We're here to help you.
I'm Georgia Joyner of GK Joyner and Associates, and I've recently teamed up with Hogan and Smith, who I believe is a very dedicated firm to helping people to rend their disability claim. Also, Rick Gotch is with our firm, together with Hogan and Smith. I'm a former employee of Social Security of 52 years. I worked for Social Security and represented thousands of cases, both in court and prior to going to the hearings. We know Social Security law, and that's what we're dedicated to do in helping you to win your case.